Thank you. Greetings. Thank you so much, Tanya Cyrus. That was an awesome welcome. Thank you. Thank you to Unity of Brooklyn for welcoming me back home. Um, yes, it's been quite a wonderful long relationship and engagement. Thank you. And I just want to thank everybody for, well, first and foremost, Reverend Marilyn Becker for inviting me and all of you for having me here. And also, just today's service starting off is just so awesome and most certainly in alignment with today's talk. I'd like to think that it all happened very organically and just how spirit brings things together. The talking about the daily word, talking about balance, and the music, the higher place, just rising to a higher place. That has so much to do with today's talk, and of course the consciousness of everyone here. That is all just bringing it together. So bless you all and blessings from my own center, One Love Center for Spiritual Living. And I'm just so grateful to be a part of the spirit, the high consciousness of love that is in all of our centers of truth, wherever they may be, whether unity or spiritual living or by whatever name, whatever religion, that there is a consciousness of higher awareness, of higher living, of being the best that we can be in every moment. And we most certainly are doing our part here because as we continue to meet in whatever form and way that we do, we are continuing to impress upon the universe, to impress upon this planet, to impress upon all the inhabitants of this spiritual way of thinking and living, most certainly believing that it is most certainly God's good pleasure to give all that is available for us to assist each and every one of us to being the best that we can be. And so, thank you again. Thank you, Unity of Brooklyn. Um, and so, today's talk has so much to do, and that wonderful meditation and those affirmations. Thank you again, Tanya. It's about so much about preparing for each moment, but think about traveling, about moving, about whether you're going on vacation or just going from one place to another, to the store, to an event or an activity. We're always planning on some level. We just don't get up and go. Sometimes it seems like that. Sometimes it seems like we don't necessarily have a great plan for our travel, our trip, but you have to think about a few certain things. And I like what Tanya mentioned about the preparing for the guidance. And a lot of times we get still. And sometimes on some level, to some degree, wherever we're going, there's a moment where we just have to stop and pause and okay, where am I going? How am I going to get there? And we wait for an answer. I would say that's what everybody does. I'd like to think that we just don't just go running out without a plan and expect to get where we want to go. Uh, Now, unless you don't have a plan, or you don't know where you want to go, and you just go out and finger out to the wind, and whichever way the wind blows, there I go. No, that we're well, that might be very adventurous, but after a while, you may not, enjoy where you're ending up. Yeah. So most of the time, I mean, on the physical level, we certainly will have some kind of plan on getting to where we want to go. Whether you're going to the store, which street am I going to take? But and there are rules and laws associated with all of that. And if you think about it on the metaphysical level, and that's really what it's all about, it has to start in mind with our thought and our belief that turns into our actions. Yes. And so therefore, we have a mental plan and not just the brain. However, we have to be right in spirit, the combination of mind and body and soul and the spirit all coming together. And yes, Tanya, we need to be still even for a moment, to be able to get in touch with that. And so today's talk, are you using your your spiritual GPS? Are you using your GPS to get to where you want to go? And if you think about it, you know, your personal GPS is on like all the time. You know, if you think about it, and GPS, I don't know, we use the abbreviation so often, we may not even remember that it stands for Global Positioning System or Global Positioning Satellite. Okay. And we just say, oh, GPS, you know, like before it used to be a map. You have to go into the glove compartment, pull up a map and, you know, and plot where you want to go. And now we just type it in or speak it in to a device that will give us the directions. And we all have a personal GPS, as you heard in the meditation, when we get still and quiet and we affirm that there is something that will guide us and it never fails. The only time it doesn't work is when we don't use it, when we don't work it. You know, when we surrender to that personal GPS. And and for me, I call that guidance. You know, it's G stands for guidance positioning system. It's like we have to turn it on. We've got to be okay, it's on. I still have to use it. I still have to input to get some output, right? Okay, where do I want to go? Where do I want to be? More importantly, who am I and who am I choosing to be in each moment? And yes, we can use some direction. I didn't grow up thinking I was going to be a minister. I don't know about everything that all of you are doing, but if you think about it, are you doing what you thought you'd be doing when you were like in kindergarten or first grade or second grade or third grade? And maybe there are some who knew they were going to be a musician or knew they were going to be a doctor or was able to follow through with that belief that you heard early on. Wiki Byers has a song called "I'm Ready to Listen Now," and it's then some of the lyrics are, "I'm ready to listen now. I've heard the voice before. Your way has been calling me." You know, and now I'm, you know, I think it's walking through the open door. It's like the door is already open, always been. It's like that voice is, and it's called the still small voice for a reason. The voice of the divine guidance. And G could stand for God, God positioning system. It's like God is positioning me to be where I need to be, when I need to be there, and how I need to be in order to do what I'm here to do, what each and every one of us is here to be, to do, and to have. I think it's just awesome that we all have this GPS. And the question is, are you using it? And it's personal because everyone is going to have their own direction, going to have their own guidance. My guidance most likely wouldn't work perfectly for you. It might get you part of the way, but my guidance is for me. And you have your own system. You have your own GPS. And these are the things that make a difference in the quality of our lives. And so it's time to check our inner compass. You know, yes, we're already on the path, obviously. We're already here. Even the infant is on their path. They need a lot of guidance, you know, and when we take care of the young ones, they're depending on our GPS to guide them in the way for them to go. And it's crucial that we are paying attention to our GPS, especially for others. So, are we still on the path? You know, maybe we thought, oh, hey, you know, I'm on cruise control, you know, and cruise control is not the same as a GPS. Cruise control keeps us on the same path, but maybe there's a detour up ahead. And if we're checking in with that GPS, you know, we might catch a glimpse of things to come before they come. And the GPS, sometimes my the GPS, I don't know which brand you're using, maybe it doesn't matter. But mine's all of a sudden will give options like what course do you want to take? This course will be faster. This one has no tolls. Can imagine like, oh, it's a heavy toll to take. Who wants to choose tolls? you know, and tolls are expensive. They're going to cost you something. And if there's a route that I can take that is coming from this divine guidance that tells me, hey, Rodney, if you go that way, it's going to cost you. You can go this way. And, the thing about my God positioning system, that still small voice, it doesn't yell, it doesn't scream, it doesn't shout. It's just like, Rodney, go that way. If you go that way, you'll have less trouble. It'll be smoother. You'll get there quicker, with less toll and stress. Um, and the only way I'm going to hear it, as you heard in the meditation, is to be still, to be in the silence, to be quiet. I remember when I first got my GPS and it would say turn right, and I wouldn't pay attention. I wouldn't listen, or maybe I really wasn't paying attention, and I just kept going. And what would it say? It would say recalculating, and it would always try to get me back on path, back in the direction I need to be going to get to or to the destination. And we all have a destination, and maybe in the long run, in the grand scheme of things, we don't see a physical destination. But we know that our path is always the path to God, the path of oneness, the path to return us to who we are on that grand scale. Yes, we are all individualized expressions of the divine. We are all ones of the one, like like sand on the beach. There's the beach, and we're all these individual particles. Is all we are all uh, sand, and we all look very much alike, and we all have the same purpose, and all it is to bring it all together so we can all be called as one, whether it would drop to water in the ocean or whatever it is. We are a part of the whole, and we are individualized expressions of that. And so as it's been called, we are descended masters. We are descended from the one, the still of the one. We are descended from the mind into form. And our job is to return back to whence we came, back to the conscious awareness of our wholeness with the divine as the divine. We are this divine spirit that has found its way into this physical reality, and we're using this opportunity to explore and to learn and to share and to assist one another in returning to whence we came, from where we came. And and so that's our job, is to believe that the kingdom of heaven is within us. We don't have to search. We don't need a GPS to find the kingdom of heaven, and that we experience this kingdom of heaven to the degree that we become conscious of it. Meaning this GPS, this inner guide, which we don't necessarily need. However, this human condition means that yes, we're forgetful, we're distracted. There are things that get in the way, right? There are barriers that we create. There are road hazards. There's all these things that seem to get in the way of our direct connection of the divine. And so, yes, we need this GPS God positioning system that says, I'll get you back on track. All you have to do is listen. All you have to do is pay. Pay what? Pay attention. Pay attention and know that, yes, there is a divine purpose for your life. You are already on track, and you have to believe it. And if for some reason you get off course, you have this guidance positioning system. And what do we have to do? We have to pause sometimes. Just stop for a moment, just take a pause, become conscious of the still small voice. And we have to believe and trust that it is there and working for us. Otherwise, why would we even have it? And so we think about it's funny because that still small voice is always providing the true guidance for us. I think about it as parents. You know how sometimes it seemed like the parents would just stop it, telling you what to do and how to do it, and all of a sudden I think I know better. I'm like, I don't want to hear it. But the still small voice of God is always talking. It's always providing this guidance, and it works when we expand our consciousness to permit us to listen to this truth. You know, we have to be conscious of it. Like, yes, it's there. I know it's there. And I get to receive it. I'm only going to hear. We only hear what we become conscious of. So when we're conscious that this still small voice from the divine is there, then we're going to take it to the next step. And it's going to allow us to have more and more of the good life that to be experienced that is there for us. And all we have to do is get there. And sometimes we can't get there from here if we're not hearing, if we're not open to hearing and listening. And so, you know, I love acronyms, and this is one I didn't make up, but it's called STOP. STOP. Sometimes this is one of the things we have to do. Just stop. Like if you want to get from here to California or wherever you are, get here to some distance, and you don't know how to get there, and you start embarking on this journey, and you have no idea what direction to go in, but you know you want to get there. You want to get there. Sometimes we just have to stop and like, okay, what am I doing? Where am I going? And how am I going to get there? And that's the time to move into the silence, to take the time to be still and know that God is, period. God is. God is here, God is there, and everywhere in between. And we need to find, so S is for silence. Be in the silence. T is for time. And that is take the time to be still. You know, sometimes when you see people driving really fast on the highway or even on the streets, and they're rushing to get to a red light or rushing into a traffic jam. It's like, well, that was a lot of wasted energy and potentially dangerous, and they had to stop anyway. And so they think for some reason that they don't have the time. And we need to take the time because sometimes when you slow down, you stop, you take the time, you can look ahead, and then you get to see, like maybe, oh, that's why I'm being slowed down, or maybe I have to be in another direction. Uh, and so we take the time. And then O is opportunity, the opportunity to truly experience the silence and make good use of your time instead of rushing in headlong into traffic or rushing into a busy mind or a busy day. Sometimes we need to walk slowly into our day or just take a moment, take a breath. I remember many years ago, I heard Reverend Marilyn talking about uh, something she had read from a spiritual teacher who said he does two things when he starts his day. He gets out of bed. Um, he does two things. He makes up his mind and he makes up his bed. While he's making up his mind, while he's making up his bed, he's making up his mind, or she making up their bed and smoothing out the wrinkles, smoothing out the wrinkles of the day. You're thinking ahead. This is how my day is going to be. We're mapping out our day and allowing for it to be smooth. And we wrinkle out the we straighten out the wrinkles so that we can go through the day, smoothing out wrinkles and enjoy our journey through the day. And so that's the opportunity sometimes to be silent, to take the time and use the opportunity. And then we can hear the P for presence, whisper the wisdom to us, because again, I've never had like what I call God, that divine inner wisdom, yell at me. It's like, Rodney, it's time. Time to get up. It's time to go left. It's time to go right. Time to stop. I don't know about you, uh, but I'd like to think that since you're here in the sound of my voice and seeing my face, that yeah, you're getting a glimpse that you do this already. However, now it's time for us to make conscious use of our GPS, of our personal GPS. And so, you know, take a conscious and mindful time each day to stop. And just stop and remind yourself. You might even want to set your phone to stop to some point throughout the day. Schedule a meeting with yourself to stop, to be in the silence, to take the time, to use the opportunity to hear the presence. And what else can you think of during the day to make stop a part of your day? And so another thing is in this God positioning system, and in the program, I don't know if you've seen the program. I put in a type where it said CPS uh, uh, instead of GPS. And if you think about CPS, maybe that could stand for Christ positioning system, and that would have a profound effect because we know that Jesus the Christ, it represents. You can look it up in the in the dictionary, uh, Fillmore's Metaphysical Dictionary, and Christ is listed as Jesus the Christ is listed as a representation of the perfect man. Okay, this is who man as human, perfect man, perfect woman, perfect person, meaning that we are so in tune with the infinite. We are so in tune with the divine presence that you couldn't even tell the difference between what you would call God and its creation, because we are children of the Most High, and what the children grow up to be, the Most High. All right, when we have evolved our consciousness so much so that we are operating it with the same power, the same love, the same intensity, the same compassion, the same joy, the same all of the qualities of God, of the divine that show up in this human realm, in this human form. And when we have attained that, then like the story of Jesus the Christ, we have evolved and we get to move on in consciousness. I and my Father are one. That's what this means. And the Christ positioning system puts us in position to realize, to recognize and realize this oneness. And we're operating on that higher level. We get to go, we get to be where we want to go, on the physical level and as well as the spiritual level. We get to have people like, wow, they walk around like they're floating on air, where we don't have that care and that worry. We're not carrying a heavy toll everywhere we go. It shows up in our face and smiles. And even if it's not a big smile, but people can see the lightness in our face. And in the meditation, our shoulders are not hunched up, and we're relaxed and at peace within ourselves. And so we 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 know that, and thank goodness that there is this GPS, because it allows us to recalculate if we got off course. Now, uh, I don't know how many of you have been on a cruise, but if you're on a cruise ship, they have a nowadays, it's an automatic repositioning. It's recalculating. They know where they want to go. And just the way life is, if you're on the ocean, the waves are going to push you a certain way. And what pushes the waves? It's the wind that's going to push the waves. It's going to push the ship in a different direction. Even if you're driving a car, even if you're on cruise control, you might be going straight, but the road changes. The road is not perfectly straight. And so you're always going to be off course a little bit. And so we're always allowing ourselves to be repositioned to get ourselves back on course. And we need to recalculate. We need to allow ourselves to recalculate and to listen to that says, well, we need to not just recalculate, but maybe you need to make a detour from the way you thought you were going to go. It might take a little longer, or it might be shorter. However, and sometimes a shortcut is not doesn't always tend to be shorter. Have you always like, I'm going to take a shortcut. I'm not going to pay attention to this GPS. I'm going to go this way, and I've done that numerous times. Turns out that that GPS had me going a way that seemed slower and seemed longer, but my shortcut was actually worse. And that happens because I didn't stop for a moment. I didn't stop to pay attention, to look and listen, and allow and surrender to that inner divine wisdom. And so I have a quote I'd like to share, and it says, and this is from Ernest Holmes, Sermon by the Sea. It says, "We have discovered that which the great, the good, and the wise have sung about and thought about, the imprisoned splendor within ourselves and within each other, and have direct contact with it. And to discover this, we need to be still, because sometimes when we're making a lot of noise in our head, and we have preconceived notions about life and people, sometimes we don't necessarily get to know the best about themselves because we're not taking the time to know the best about ourselves. And there is that, it's called the imprisoned splendor, and it's in us. That splendor is within all of us, and that's one of our stops on the journey, is to allow, to explore, and to appreciate that inner splendor. That's and that's and and paying attention to that inner wisdom, that guidance gets us to enjoy that inner splendor. And and, and here's something also. It's by Bhagavan Sri Ramnan Maharashi. It says, God illumines the mind and shines within it. One cannot know God by means of the mind. One can but turn the mind inward and merge in God. And so that God, that GPS is always directing us inward to know the very presence of the divine that we are. Have you heard, always looking for love in the wrong places? We're looking outside of ourselves for the truth. We're looking outside of ourselves for love. We're looking outside of ourselves for God somewhere, and not realizing that, God is in that heaven, and that heaven is within each and every one. And let's not be confused. We're not talking about the body necessarily. We're talking about within the whole beingness of who we are. And again, we can easily say that Bible quote, and thank you, Cecil, for that, that no one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us and has love, and God's love is made complete in us. And we're always directed inward to see the true nature of who we are. And since we are all one, when I see the truth of who I am, that I am love, and I am expressing that love, I see the love that you are, that each and every one is, and that's what we do with and for each other. And that is what this GPS, that God positioning system, or the CPS, the Christ position, positioning us to know the Christ presence, which is love, in each and every one of us. And so I want to think about these things. I invite you to take this on for today and this week, and ask yourself, what do you do to give yourself a break and feel closer to spirit? And how much of your ego is engaged in each thing that you do, in each deed? And think about that, because that ego can take us off track, and take us, on a place that we really don't enjoy being. Sometimes it says it's not the mind, it's not the brain. And the ego is a part of the brain. The ego is, always wants control, doesn't want to give control to spirit. Spirit always has control, and the ego thinks it has control. And sometimes we let it. I always say, the ego is with you all the time. It travels with you all the time. Use your GPS, your spiritual guidance, positioning system. Don't use ego, and certainly don't give ego the keys to the car. Don't let ego drive. is not going to take you where you want to go. You know, ego wants to go its own way. You know, trust in the spirit, trust in the Christ positioning system. And then you ask yourself, have there been times in your life where you recalculated your route? Think about it. Times I know where I want to go. I pay no attention to spirit. So sometimes when we're going fine and everything seems to be perfect, then we might get off track. We might get pulled off track. We might get distracted. Okay. And at those moments, we have to pull ourselves back and maybe pull over and stop and allow ourselves a moment, the opportunity to hear that divine presence. So I'd like to leave you with an affirmation. Just taking a breath. And it says, I hear the still small voice expressing its love through me. I'll repeat it again. Take a breath. I hear the still small voice expressing its love through me. And now it is. Peace and blessings, beloved.